let's put together this user interface component here that allows us to have this very nice elevated card per se. Okay, let's see how can we do that. So now we have created our surface, which is this entire canvas here. Let's go ahead and put together that card entity. Well, as the name implies, there is in fact a UI function, user interface function, that we can call to create just that. And it's called card. There we go. So you start typing card. Again, you can see here, it is indeed a function that is a composable function, which means it comes from the compose library, Jetpack compose library. So all of this is already done for us. So we're just invoking those functions and get the results. How neat is that? All right. Okay, so now I'm going to say enter to get that. So we have the card. Now the beauty of the card here, if you hover over, this is another amazing thing. There's a lot of information that you will see here. And most of it make no sense to you. And that's fine. Again, we're just getting something done here. Okay. So just follow along and we'll have plenty of time to go over all these things, all these details. Okay, so no problem. All right, so it's a composable function. If you hover over, you can see, and you can see here, it says public function card and has its composable at composable there to say this is indeed a composable function. And then we have this modifier here, right? The modifier again allows us to modify the contents of that function. And we can pass shape to say, okay, what kind of shape we want, background color of this shape, content color, and all sort of things. Ah, wonderful. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, is put a modifier. Again, hit enter. I'm going to say modifier. Again, modifier. I'm going to say dot width because I want to control the width of this card. Okay, so if you say width like that, you see a few options. One, the first option, which is we're going to be able to pass a width value. Okay, so in this case, I just want 200. And now we need to pass the actual unit size. Okay, so I'm going to say dot dp like this. Now, what is this dp? dp is the Android unit measure. So this is how Android measures the pixels that we are needing, height, the widths, and all sort of things. Okay, just think of it as just a measuring system or measuring unit with Android. It has a lot with it, but that's what we're going to go with for now. All right. But we have a problem here because that says that we need to actually import the library, this unit library. So what we can do here, I can say Alt or Option on window and hit enter. Go like this, and voila, it's imported. You can see if you go at the top here in our imports, this may be closed for you. You can just actually click to the left there. And you can see this is what was imported. So we're able to use that library. All right, so we have that done. So now the width of this card, it's going to be 200. And we can pile on onto our modifier. So if I hit enter, I say dot again. I can say I want, in this case, the height. The height, we're going to put 390 dp again, right? Very good. If you want to continue to add more modifiers, more things to customize our card, you can, but we're going to stop here for now. The other thing we want to do is we want to give this card some sort of elevation. What that means is that if you look at our card here, you notice that we have some sort of shadow around, which makes it look like it's elevated from the main background canvas, or in this case surface. So we can actually set that up and say how elevated we want. So meaning how much of this shadow we want it to show, so it pops from the canvas. Okay, so we can do that by say comma, hit enter. Notice this is not part of modifier anymore. This is a different property. And so we're going to say elevation, start typing. You can see there it is. It says here right away it's elevation, and we must pass a dp unit for it. So I'm going to say I want about, let's say 4.dp. There we go. Now let's go ahead and refresh, see if we're going to see anything. Okay, so it's done, refreshed, but we see nothing. In fact, if I keep going here, let's go and see. It doesn't look like there's anything, but there is something. It's just that there's more to do to make it look like this, right? So there are other properties we need to pass. What are those other properties? Well, the card is there. We understand that. We're not seeing it because it's white on white, and we haven't delimited everything. So what we need to do next is to pass in a shape. Now, if you hover over card again, you can see there is, of course, a type or parameter, or in this case, a property we can pass called shape. We're going to use that. Now, what we're going to do is after elevation, or even before elevation, really, I'm going to say shape. This, say is equal. And for us here, for our shape, what do we need to do? I'm going to say rounded. You can actually start typing rounded corner shapes. This rounded corner shape, as the name implies, it's going to create rounded corners for the entire shape, all of the edges. But we need to pass something else. We need to pass, there's different things we can pass. We can actually set up to say, okay, I want the top start to be 10 dp, for instance, which means the corner is not going to be as sharp, right? So the higher the number, the sharper the corner is, or in this case, the rounder the corner is, I should say. But I want to make sure that all the corners are actually same roundness, if you will. So I can just pass here, say corner, like this, hit enter. I'm going to pass a corner type, if you will, and pass this size there. So the size again is going to be dp. So I'm going to say I want to be about 15.dp, like this. So now what I'm saying again is that I'm going to put a shape onto this card so that this card has a rounded corner shape. And I pass in the size of the radius per se of each corner. Let's see if we're going to be able to see something. And you can see, probably, let's make this really, you can see now there is indeed a little corner out there, right? It's rounded. It's not too much, but it's there. One thing I can do to make this more visible is I'm going to change the color of our card. That way it's more visible. In fact, again, if you have over our card, you can see we have the property of background color. So right after shape, I can come up here and say background color. As such, get the comma, and then here I'm going to say color. I'm going to invoke this color function, say dot, and I just want to say green for now. This will just let us be able to actually see the difference between the background, as in the surface, right, and the background of the card. So we can see that this is actually working. The shape is rounded corner shape. Refresh again, and now you can see the difference. There it is. I know this is a very aggressive color, but bear with me here. You can see there it is. We do have those corners there. If I look at the bottom too, there we go. All right, that's good. That's real good. And the other thing we can do, we can actually add a padding around the entire card. So inside of our modifier here, I'm going to come up and say dot padding. This padding is going to give a padding around the entire card. So I'm going to say 12 dp as such. Let's go ahead and rebuild this. Make this a normal size since we have seen that this is actually working. Okay, there we go. And now you can see it's much better. And you can see now that because we added that padding around this card here, right? That's what we are building. We have 12, so the bigger this number, of course, the more padding, which means the more difference we will see between the background and our card. Because the more padding, that means you're padding around it, making it a little bit smaller. Okay, so this is working. This is really good. In fact, now I can get rid of this hideous color and let's just put something like white, even though we know that white is the color that is given automatically as default. But I just want to show you other alternatives here. Okay, so there we go. And I know it's real hard to see, but there you go. It's not too bad. You can see now, there it is. It's showing. So now we have the actual card on top of our surface. So it's starting to look a lot like this, at least the background. All right, very good. So while we're here, let's go ahead and see if we can run this because we have something. Let's run this onto our device. There are two things we can do. We can go ahead, of course, and run this because this still is an application, Android application, and run this directly from here, right? Or we can just go ahead and run from here. It says there, deploy preview. I can just click there. It should go ahead and start launching an emulator. It says no emulators are currently running, and we can change that real quick. Okay, it's connecting. Actually, should have just waited a little bit until it started connecting. And voila, you can see we have now, I'm gonna just close that one down. We have this emulator and you can see it looks really good. We have that nice card, rounded corner card showing there. Okay, great. So the moral of the story here is I hope you can see how easy really things are now with Compose to create these amazing, good looking user interfaces. We didn't have to do a lot of work. We just passed in a modifier and said, for instance, we want this surface to take up the entire width of the screen. We want to take up the entire height of the screen. And then inside of this surface, this canvas, this background there, another white one, we want to put a card. And inside of this card, we want to also make this card a little bit smaller in width, so 200 dp, height 390, and then we're going to create a padding around the card. So padding around this whole card here, right, of 12 dp. And then we said the shape should be, of course, have the corner size of 15 dp. So the higher this number, the rounder this will be, these corners there. All right, and say we said background color. In fact, we can just get rid of that because the default is always white. And we'll say elevation is going to be 4 dp, which means it's going to be visible. It's going to be higher on top of our surface that we created. Oh, very good. So as we go through this, please go ahead and type as I am typing and break things. So try to change, for instance, the padding and see what happens, or add, make this larger, or perhaps change the color as I showed you, or change the corner size DP inside there and see what will transpire here or inside of our preview. So that's a really good exercise I'd like to do, and let's keep going.